Consumer impact. President Biden shutting down the Dakota Access Pipeline would cost Corn Belt farmers more than $1 billion in annual revenue, leading to a spike in food costs for consumers. That's according to some experts. The pipeline is currently under environmental review and was approved by former President Trump back in 2017 after being denied by former President Barack Obama. Joining me now, Arkansas Congressman on the Agriculture Committee and the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee as well, Rick Crawford. Congressman, welcome. Good morning. Let's start with that first point. Your thoughts?
Well, we've seen the environmental review take place, whether we're talking about Dakota Access Pipeline or Keystone, whichever, and all the boxes have been checked. I mean, this is environmentally speaking, it's more friendly than the alternative, and we need to continue from an economic standpoint as well because the jobs associated with it. So I think this is bad decision, bad policy.
And it's going to impact the U.S. consumer. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just about this pipeline per se, energy policy or oil, but, we're talking about the stock market. We're talking about inflation and all these elements that are impacting how we live and how our economy grows. And yet we could see food prices rise from this unforeseen consequence of a shutdown.
Well, that's true. We don't tend to think about this as holistically as we should. I mean, when we start to see fuel costs rise as a result of these decisions, we start to see production costs rise on the farm and transportation costs rise. So that means the market basket the price of the market basket is going to increase to the consumer. And so all of these policies do have impact. Whether you are driving an electric vehicle or not, you still are a consumer. And so it's going to have an impact, broadly speaking, on our economy.
Yeah, and the House Agriculture Committee approving the agriculture and nutrition provisions of the Democrats' proposed aid package as well. I want to talk to you about that because the total cost is coming out to about $16 billion, including $5 billion in aid to farmers of color and an extension of higher benefits under SNAP. Congressman, tell us more about this.
Well, I've been on the Ag Committee now since I got in Congress. This is my 6th term. I've never seen a more partisan display. Now, I will say in fairness and all due respect to Chairman David Scott, I don't think you'll find a finer gentleman anywhere. And I think that in this budget reconciliation hearing we had last week that I think he was really torn. I think he was torn between wanting to do the right thing and reaching out on a bipartisan basis where he has a history of doing that, and that's the kind of character that he is, and being given his marching orders by Nancy Pelosi to mark up a bill that is really punitive to rural America and has some pretty broad impacts, negatively speaking, on the ag economy and the general economy. And so I think it was evident that he wasn't comfortable with that, but it was, those are the orders by the Speaker.
John Hilsenrath.
Congressman, I want to talk to you about infrastructure, which is another committee that you're involved in. So after doing this $1.9 trillion relief package, the Biden administration wants to move on to an infrastructure bill of some kind. Do you see any room there for agreement between Republicans and Democrats on spending on long-run infrastructure projects? And what kind of roadblocks do you see to any kind of bipartisanship on the next bill that's going to be coming down the pike?
I think the roadblocks that you're going to run into are going to be associated with the Green New Deal and the costs associated with that. And Republicans just simply not recognizing the reality is we don't have the resources to cover those costs, number one. Number two, many of those are really emotionally driven type decisions that are not, well-founded. And so what we certainly are for infrastructure, and we've put offers on the table over the last several years, and they're just rejected. In fact, last Congress, they had trouble getting Democrat votes for infrastructure package. And so I think you're going to see a package emerge from the House. It won't be a good one. It will be full of Green New Deal initiatives. It'll go to the Senate, but I don't think it's going to pass in the Senate. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. If it were to pass out of the Senate, most certainly the president would sign it. And that's unfortunate as well, because I think what we're seeing is just this unnecessary costs associated with programs that I think the American people just don't want or need at this point in time.
And there's a lot of conversation, Congressman, about our tax dollars, how they're being used, and a lot of outrage about that on so many different topics, but including this one. Many Americans believe an infrastructure bill would be a positive thing if the dollars were allocated in the right way. And of course, that's the issue. Congressman Rick Crawford, great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. You bet.